Welcome to Star Wars Characters Explained. Before I continue, if you've not yet seen Chapter 1 and 2 of Revan's story, I highly recommend going back and checking them out first. For returning viewers, welcome back to Chapter 3, The Redemption of Revan. Now, this chapter follows the events of the Knights of the Old Republic game. As many of you know, the game can be played in a variety of ways, but I'm going to be following the canon version of the game's story. Also, to ensure this video isn't 1,000 years long, I'm not going to be telling every minor detail of the game's story, and what I mean by this is the side quests and details that populate the game, but don't have an impact on the main journey. If you want to experience the story in its most refined form, the best possible thing to do is pick the game up and experience it for yourselves. I just want to reiterate though that this is a 5-chapter series, so if you want to join me for the entirety of Revan's story, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you're notified directly when the next chapters are released. This entire chapter of Revan's story is set during the year of 3956 BBY. So, let's dive in. The now newly proclaimed Sith Lord Darth Malak was on the hunt for Bastila Shan after Revan's apparent death and had managed to corner her ship, the Endar Spire, above the planet Taris. Unbeknownst to him, however, was Revan's presence aboard the ship, who now had a completely new identity as a common Republic soldier from Duralia. Malak fired upon and had his forces board the Endar Spire to capture Bastila, but she had managed to escape to the planet's surface in an escape pod. Revan, who was in a deep sleep, awoke towards the end of the battle in his quarters and was urged by his roommate Trask Olgo to escape the vessel. The two battled through Sith invaders to reach the escape pods, however Trask gave his life by fighting the Sith Lord Darth Bandon while Revan escaped. Revan was then contacted by Carth Onasi, and he helped direct Revan towards the escape pods. Once Revan united with Carth, they escaped in the last pod, crashing onto Taris' upper city, while the Endar Spire crashed somewhere on the planet's desolate surface. Carth had dragged an unconscious Revan out of the pod into an abandoned apartment. While Revan was unconscious, Carth scouted around the city, which was now under military lockdown by the Sith. Meanwhile, Revan began to have severe nightmares of Bastila fighting fallen Jedi aboard a Sith flagship, and several days passed until he regained consciousness. Once he did, Carth explained the dire situation to him. Carth then convinced Revan that Bastila was still alive, and curious as to why she was present in his dreams, Revan agreed to help find her. However, the pair needed to find a way into the undercity of Taris where Bastila's pod had supposedly crashed, but it was barred by Sith troopers who had the upper city locked down. Revan and Carth then searched the upper city and encountered several Sith soldiers threatening to kill a civilian. They jumped into his defence, and the civilian revealed that he was supplying the Hidden Beck swoop gang with Sith soldier armour so that they could pass security checkpoints. He advised Revan and Carth to speak with their leader, Gadon Thek, if they wished to help fight the Sith. Then, using the armour from the defeated Sith as disguises, they managed to get into the lower city, but when they arrived in the lower city, a fight between some Hidden Becks and their rival gang, the Black Vulkars, ensued just outside the elevator. The Black Vulkars then turned to Revan and Carth, and the two were forced to kill them. They stopped off in the lower city cantina to take a break, and it was here that they first encountered the infamous bounty hunter Calo Nord, as well as the young Twi'lek, Mission Veo, and her Wookiee companion Zalbar, who they chatted with for a brief moment. They then proceeded to meet with Gadon Thek, who informed them that Bastila was being held captive by the Black Vulkars, and being offered as a prize in the annual swoop race. Gadon offered to help if Revan stole a prototype swoop bike engine from the Black Vulkar base. Revan agreed and traded his Sith armour for authorization papers so he could get into the undercity of Taris. On their way, they met and briefly spoke with a Mandalorian bounty hunter called Canderous Ordo. When they reached the Undercity, they were found by a crazed Mission Veo, who informed Revan that her Wookiee friend Zalbar had been captured by Gamorreans in the sewers. Mission offered to get Revan into the Black Vulcar base if Revan helped her find Zalbar, so the trio entered the sewers to find him. When they released Zalbar after killing the Gamorrean captors, he swore a life debt to Revan for saving his life, and the four then proceeded to the hidden entrance of the Black Vulcar base in the sewers. Before they could get in though, Revan had to kill a Rancor by placing some active grenades onto a corpse, which the Rancor then ate. They entered the base and fought their way to the prototype engine and returned it to Gadden, who then entered Revan into the race using the engine. Revan won the race and earned Bastila's freedom, but the leader of the Black Vulcars, Brejik, knew that Revan stole the engine and claimed that he was pulling Bastila from the prize list, which caused a massive fight between the gangs. Bastila, however, had managed to free herself from the cage and helped the group defeat Brejik. On their way back up, Revan had another vision, more intense than the last, of Bastila fighting Dark Jedi. When they returned to the apartment in the upper city, Karth and Bastila engaged in a heated argument about their rescue, but Revan intervened, saying that they should be figuring out how to escape the planet. Revan also discussed his visions with Bastila, who refrained from giving Revan too much information, fearing the possible return of his former self. She concluded that the pair must go to the Jedi Council on Dantooine and proceed from there on what to do about the visions. Meanwhile, the group was contacted by Canderous Ordo, who heard of their exploits, and he had a way of getting off the planet by stealing his employer Davik Kang's personal ship, the Ebon Hawk, but Canderous needed the authorization codes to get it past the Sith blockade. So Revan and Canderous purchased the droid T3M4 to hack the door of the Sith headquarters where the codes were held, and when they entered they faced fierce resistance from the Sith forces. They fought through the Sith guards and retrieved the codes. Revan, Canderous and Bastila then travelled to Davik Kang's estate to steal the Ebon Hawk. However, Malak grew restless in his search for Bastila, so he ordered his fleet to simply destroy the entire planet from above. While the planet was being bombarded, they battled their way to the hangar to find the Ebon Hawk, and were confronted by Davik himself and his lapdog, the bounty hunter Calo Nord. However, part of the hangar roof caved in, landing on top of Davik and Calo, allowing Revan and Canderous and Bastila to take the Ebon Hawk. They picked up their friends in the upper city and left Taris to its unfortunate fate. After evading the Sith, the group travelled to Dantooine to meet with the Jedi Council. In the private meeting, Master Jar Lestin informed Revan and Bastila that they intended to train Revan as a Padawan, much to Master Rook's fear that Darth Revan may return if they did so. Either way, the rest of the council agreed to training him. Revan then returned to the Ebon Hawk to rest after the ordeal on Taris. However, his sleep was mired with more dreams, this time of the Sith Lords Darth Revan and Malak finding a star map in a strange ruin. Revan and Bastila then met with the council again to discuss the meaning of these dreams. The council told Revan that the ruins he saw were located near the temple, and to Revan's surprise he also learned that Bastila had this dream too, and that she and him were connected by a force bond. The council then decreed that he was to start his training, and once he had finished it, he could investigate the ruins with Bastila. Revan then spent the next several weeks undergoing an intense form of training, and much to the council's surprise, Revan had managed to relearn and recover most of his power and force connection within mere weeks. However, before the council officially declared him a Jedi, his final test would be to discover what was causing a dark side taint in the nearby grove. When he travelled to the grove, he discovered a Cathar called Juhani, who he had met and freed from slavery in the Mandalorian Wars, although neither remembered each other as Juhani had only seen him with the mask and Revan had had his mind wiped. Juhani had fallen to the dark side, as she thought she had killed her master, which she didn't. This was a test for her and for Revan. After a short-winded battle, he convinced her to return to the council to seek forgiveness, and they returned to the temple together. Revan was now officially declared a Jedi Padawan, and his next mission was to uncover the truth inside the mysterious ruin haunting his dreams. But before he and Bastila left, they met Juhani again, who informed him that she had successfully passed her test and was now a full Jedi Padawan. Revan and Bastila entered the ruin with T3M4 and were greeted by an ancient droid who informed them that if they were to pass any further, they needed to complete 2 tests. They completed the simple tests and moved further into the temple, finding an incomplete star map with the planets Tatooine, Kashyyyk, Manaan and Korriban being singled out. They assumed that the missing pieces of this map could be found on these 4 planets, and so they returned to the Council with the information. The Council believed that it was in their best interests to discover the source of Malak's resources, and so they gave Revan and Bastila the mission to find the maps on each planet. The crew of the Ebon Hawk were given permission to follow Revan, and Juhani was also given permission to help Revan now she had completed her training. The first planet on their journey was Tatooine, landing in the Anchorhead spaceport. However, Revan first needed to acquire a pass to leave the confines of the city. He got this pass by making a deal with Zerka. In exchange, Revan would need to deal with the Sand People who were attacking the city. Revan was also told that a local droid dealer had a strange droid that may have been helpful as it could speak in the Sand People's dialect. As they entered the marketplace to find the shop, a group of Sith assassins were waiting for them, but they were easily dealt with, and they entered the shop of Ukalaka. The droid that Ukalaka was selling was a unique assassin droid. Unknown to Revan, this droid was HK-47, Darth Revan's personal assassin, but the droid didn't recognise his master due to internal programming, restricting complete access to his memory core. They purchased HK-47 and travelled into the Dune Sea of Tatooine, and were attacked by Sand People. They killed the Sand People and took their robes as disguises and entered the Sand People enclave. The chieftain saw through their disguises, however, and threatened to kill them, but Revan used HK-47 to communicate, asking if there was any way that they could come to a peaceful resolution. The chieftain offered to move his tribe away if Revan offered a way to store a reserve of water for his people. So Revan returned to Anchorhead and purchased some moisture evaporators. Revan then returned to the chieftain's shock and gave him the evaporators. The chieftain, as a show of goodwill, gave Revan his personal gaffy stick and the location of a star map hidden in a crate dragon lair, and he then left with his people further into the Dune Sea. Revan, Bastila and HK-47 then proceeded to the crate dragon's lair, where they encountered a hunter trying to lure the beast out to kill it. They helped the hunter kill the crate dragon and found the star map within the cave, copying the data found on it. But when they exited the cave, to Revan's surprise, they were ambushed by Calo Nord and some thugs. Calo somehow survived the destruction of Taris and had been hired by Malak to find and kill Bastila, but he was no match for Revan's party and Calo fell once again, this time for good. The group then returned to the Ebon Hawk and travelled to the next planet, Kashyyyk. As they arrived, Revan and Bastila received a vision of the star map deep within the jungle of the forest floor. As they left the Zerka landing pad high up in the trees, Zalbar had informed Revan that he had been banished from his world after he attacked his brother Chundar and unsheathed his claws, which was a forbidden act in Wookiee culture. Either way, Revan, Bastila and Zalbar travelled to the elevator that would take them to the forest floor, but the guard refused to let the group proceed due to Zalbar's presence, and that they would now need Chieftain Chundar's permission. When they arrived in the Wookiee capital Ruak Roro, Zalbar was captured and held hostage by Chundar, and Revan was given the task to kill a rogue Wookiee in the Shadowlands to earn Zalbar's freedom. Revan, Bastila and now HK-47 travelled to the Shadowlands to find the rogue Wookiee, but instead, to Revan's surprise, they encountered an old Jedi fighting off some Khatan lizards. After they dealt with the lizards, they returned to the Jedi's camp, who identified himself as Jolee Bindo. Bindo knew of the star map and how to get to it, but asked Revan to get rid of a group of poachers in the forest before he would help them. Revan travelled to the poacher camp and destroyed their defences, allowing the beasts of the jungle to infiltrate it, forcing the poachers to leave. Bindo was thankful and joined the party, with HK-47 returning to the Ebon Hawk. The group then travelled to the location of the star map, but were attacked by the rogue Wookiee. They defeated him and he identified himself as Freya, Zalbar and Chundar's father, who was betrayed and exiled. Revan asked if there was any way to help free Zalbar and stop his evil brother, who they had learned was selling his own people to Czerka. They agreed to retrieve a legendary blade that was a sign of leadership amongst his people, which would help Freya challenge Chundar, but the blade was stuck in the hide of the Great Beast, a vicious Terran-Tatek. Revan, Bastila and Jolee defeated the Terran-Tatek and retrieved the blade. The beast was also guarding the entrance to the star map. However, the map would not respond when they tried to open it, and Revan was forced to talk with an ancient computer that was nearby. A Rakuten hologram appeared, recognising Revan from his past visit with Malak. The hologram explained that the computer was a terraforming device that was 29,000 years old. It also revealed that Darth Revan had erased any evidence of his past visit, but the computer needed to know that Revan was the same person. The hologram gave Revan a series of questions that he failed to answer in the same way that his former self did, so the computer activated droid defences, but scanned Revan's neural patterns as he fought. The computer realised that the results of the scan were the same as they were 5 years prior, so it allowed them access to the star map, and Revan copied the necessary data from it. They then returned to Freya and gave him the blade that they retrieved from the Great Beast. Freya asked for Revan's help defeating Chundar, and the two overthrew the corrupt Wookiee, freeing Zalbar. The Wookiees had also managed to defeat the rest of Czerka, forcing them off of the planet. Zalbar had also been asked to stay on Kashyyyk with his father, but he stayed true to his life debt and returned with Revan to the Ebon Hawk. The crew then travelled to the next planet on their list, the water planet Manaan. Revan, Bindo and Bastila arrived in Arto's city and discovered that the Sith and Republic were being forced to coexist to maintain a good relationship with the Selkath, the native species of the planet. The Selkath were trading the vital healing resource Kotor on the basis that neither side fought on that planet, and both the Sith and Republic could ill afford to lose such an essential partner. Revan then travelled to the Republic Embassy, and a Republic official known as Roland Wan made it pretty clear that he knew of the star map, but as per usual he wanted something in return for the information. The Sith captured a Republic submersible droid that had information too valuable for the Sith to decrypt and steal. Revan needed the information of the map, so he agreed to find it. Revan and his party had managed to retrieve an access code that would grant them access to the Sith Embassy, but once they entered the building, the receptionist recognised that the code was no longer valid. She called the Sith military personnel to apprehend the group, prompting them to fight their way to the droid. Revan had also discovered that the Sith were trying to corrupt the Selkath youth, which would in the future give them influence in the species trade agreements. They then found the submersible droid and retrieved the data core, but unfortunately, when they left the embassy, they were apprehended by Selkath security officials, who deemed Revan to be in breach of Selkath rules by attacking and killing on their planet. Revan was then taken to a Selkath court, but he had clear evidence of the Sith's plans for Manaan, and was subsequently released. Also, because of the substantial evidence against them, the Sith were forced to pay for a hefty portion of the Republic's Kotor exports as punishment. Revan returned the droid's data to Roland Wan, who revealed that the Republic had a hidden research base called Hracket Station at the bottom of the ocean. The scientists there had come across an ancient artifact, but communication with them stopped shortly after. They then sent mercenaries down to find them, but they didn't return either. So Revan travelled down to the facility and encountered a terrified mercenary, who explained that the Selkath scientists had gone insane, attacking everybody. They moved further into the station, unfortunately killing the crazed Selkath, and found some sonic mines, as well as an environmental suit that would allow Revan and only Revan to walk the surface floor. He exited the airlock, leaving his companions behind, and travelled along the seabed, evading Faraxan sharks to another part of the facility, the Kolto control section. He found 2 surviving scientists, who revealed that a giant shark, believed to be the progenitor, a Selkath legend, rose from the seabed when they unearthed an ancient ruin. The progenitor let out some sort of scream that sent the Selkath wild, and it was protecting the ruin that they unearthed. Revan was told to destroy the Kolto harvester in hope that the shark would leave the facility be, so he once again travelled the seabed and this time destroyed the harvester. The progenitor moved, showing no more hostility, and allowed Revan to enter the underwater ruin. He found the star map and recorded the data and returned to his companions. However, as they tried to leave, a number of Sith, including Darth Bandon, Malak's apprentice who killed Trask Olgo on the Endar Spire, intercepted them. Revan and his friends easily repelled and defeated the Sith and returned to Arto City. Once again, Revan was questioned by the Selkath security, who had noticed the explosions in the facility, but Revan explained the situation to them, and they were thankful for his sparing of the progenitor, allowing the party to leave in peace. The group then returned to the Ebon Hawk and were prepared to travel to the last star map on Korriban. As they flew, the Ebon Hawk was pulled from hyperspace by a Sith interdictor cruiser that Carth recognised as the Leviathan, the ship belonging to his former mentor and leader of the Sith Armada, Saul Karath. The Hawk was boarded and the entire crew captured, being put into force cages. Saul Karath arrived and tormented his former student Carth, and personally tortured Bastila, but despite Revan's inner rage, he didn't divulge the information Saul was after, so he returned to the bridge to await for Malak's arrival, knocking the whole party unconscious out in their cages. However, unknown to anybody, HK-47 had managed to free himself from his restraining bolt and fought his way to the brig, unlocking the cages. The party then travelled to the bridge, believing it to be their best bet of shutting down the tractor beam to escape. They also sent Canderous off to prep the Ebon Hawk. When they arrived, Saul was waiting with several Sith, ensuing a vicious battle that saw Revan victorious. However, in his dying breath, Saul told Carth Revan's true identity, which sparked an argument between himself and Bastila, who begged him to keep quiet about his newfound knowledge until she had the time to explain. The party then battled their way to the hangar, but they were ambushed by Darth Malak himself in the passageways leading there. He froze his companions, belittling him, and finally revealing his true identity as Darth Revan, Dark Lord of the Sith.
You cannot hide from what you once were, Revan. Recognize that you were once the Dark Lord, and know that I have taken your place. You do not yet remember, Revan? The Jedi set a trap. They lured us into battle against a small Republic fleet. During the attack, a team of Jedi Knights boarded your ship. The Jedi strike team captured you, and the Council used the Force to reprogram your mind.
A shocked Revan looked to his companions, who admitted the truth to him. The Sith Lord and his former master both ignited their lightsabers and begun to battle further through the claustrophobic corridors. After a long-winded duel, Malak froze Revan in place, preparing to land the killing blow, until Bastila and Carth arrived and interrupted him. Shan then rushed at Malak, closing the door behind her, allowing Revan to escape, much to his protests. The party then all boarded the Ebon Hawk and escaped the Leviathan, evading the Sith fighters and jumping to hyperspace. In safety, Carth explained to the crew what happened to Bastila and demanded that Revan reveal his true identity to all of them, but it didn't matter to any of them, who all swore loyalty to their friend despite his past actions as Darth Revan. HK-47's memory core restriction had removed itself after Revan revealed his former self, and the droid also revealed his true identity to its master. They travelled to Korriban, the final planet on their list, arriving in the Dreshdai colony. Carth, Juhani and Revan travelled to the Sith Academy nearby, but were stopped in their tracks by the Sith guard protecting the entrance. He made it clear that without a Sith medallion symbolising his position as a Sith acolyte, he would not be granted entry. The guard insisted Revan talk with Yuthora Ban in the Dreshdai cantina, but when they met her she refused to offer him a medallion. But luckily for Revan, as he left the cantina, he witnessed a student threatening a woman. The student attacked Revan as he intervened and was easily defeated, allowing Revan to take his medallion. He then took it to Yuthora, who agreed to help him. Revan and his companions, who Revan claimed were slaves, entered the academy and were brought before the Sith Master, Uthar Wynn. Uthar made it clear to Revan and the other 4 acolytes present that only one of them would become a Sith. Uthar's apprentice, Yuthora, explained that the acolytes had to gain prestige in the eyes of their superiors to advance. The first acolyte to learn the Sith code would be the first to gain some. The acolytes were then taken to their quarters, and Revan began exploring the academy. He met with Yuthora, who offered Revan help in exchange for his. When Revan would be taken into the tomb of Naga Sadow for the final test, which was to reach the star map and retrieve a lightsaber, he would then help Euthora kill Uthar. He agreed to help, and Euthora taught Revan the code, as well as informing him that Wynn wanted several rogue Sith who were hiding in the Valley of the Dark Lords killed. So Revan returned to Uthar, reciting the code before anyone else gaining prestige. Revan also learned of Uthar's insane former master Jurak Uln, hidden in one of the tombs that Uthar wanted killed. Revan then left the academy with his slaves and entered an abandoned cave just outside of the Valley of the Dark Lords. He found the rogue Sith within a tomb and helped them escape the academy after killing a Terentatek blocking a secret route leading out of the academy. Revan also found Joron Keldroma's robes in a pile of bones that the beast had accumulated, which he then wore. Revan left and travelled into the Valley of the Dark Lords, and learned that Ajunta Paul's personal war sword was still present within his tomb, though no one had yet found it. Seeing it as an opportunity to gain prestige, Revan entered the tomb, fighting off the defences deep within, and found 3 swords within Ajunta's sarcophagus. To Revan's surprise, the spirit of Ajunta Paul himself emerged and begged Revan to take his sword away from the tomb, as he was regretful of his actions in the past, and the sword was the greatest reminder of it. However, Paul didn't remember which sword was truly his, and told Revan that if he took the wrong sword he would be forced to kill him. Revan, however, thanks to Ajunta's story, had managed to pick the correct blade, and even convinced the former Sith Lord to return to the light and become one with the Force. Revan moved through the tombs in the valley, recovering a Sith holocron from the tomb of Tulak Horde with the help of fellow student Lashao, who then betrayed them when they found it. Revan was forced to kill Lashao in self-defense and took the holocron for himself. They then moved further into Tulak's tomb to find Wynn's crazed master Jurak Uln, and when they entered, they were hit with a nerve toxin that rendered them unconscious. When they awoke, they were caged up with another student called Mekal, and were forced to answer a series of Sith-based questions correctly, or be shot with a bolt of lightning by Jorak. Revan passed with flying colours, and freed himself and Mekal, who joined together to kill Jorak. Revan then convinced Mekal to leave the academy, and he retrieved an ancient tablet from Jorak's body. The final prestige to gain was in the tomb of Marka Ragnos, after another student warned Revan of a rogue assassin droid that had built itself a small army. Revan fought through the war droids within the tomb and encountered the assassin droid deeper inside, who did not attack Revan. The droid had escaped from the Sith, and it wanted help in deactivating its assassination protocols. Revan was successful in doing so, and in thanks the droid gave him some of its redundant systems before it left the academy. Revan then returned to Wynn, offering up his findings and achievements, emerging as the victor. Without his companions, Revan travelled to the tomb of Naga Sadow with Euthora and Uthar for his final test in retrieving the lightsaber. He fought his way through the tomb alone, discovering the star map and recording the data. The map was now complete, and revealed an unknown planet that would come to be known as Rakata Prime, or Lehon. Revan then took the lightsaber for the task and rushed back to the 2 Sith. Uthar, elated at Revan's success, then revealed that his final task was to kill Euthora, but Revan sided with her instead, and the 2 defeated him. Euthora then decided it would be a good idea to turn on Revan, but Revan easily bested her and spared her life, insisting that she remember her past as a Jedi and return to that path. She agreed and abandoned the Sith ways, thanking him. As Revan and his companions tried to leave the academy, they were attacked by the troopers and students who had noticed Uthar was no longer with them. They fought their way out of the academy and back to the Ebon Hawk in Dreshdai. It was now time to find the Starforge, so Revan gave his crew the information of the star maps, and they jumped to hyperspace, travelling to Lehon. The Ebon Hawk exited hyperspace near Lehon and finally saw it, the Starforge, looming above the system star. Surrounding it was a Sith armada, so Carl sent out the coordinates of the star system to Admiral Thorn Dodana of the Republic Navy. However, the Sith detected the Ebon Hawk and attacked it with fighters, and despite Karth's attempts to evade them, they flew too close to the planet and were dragged in by the disruptor field. Karth had to make a crash landing on one of the planet's beaches, and the crew discovered parts of the ship suffered some serious damage. However, Juhani and Canderous suggested that they could find replacement parts from other crashed ships that had been caught in the disruptor field. While on the subject, the crew all agreed that the source of the field was coming from the large temple to the east. While their companions fixed the ship, Revan, Juhani and Jolee made their way over to the temple. Before reaching it, and after fighting off deserted Mandalorians and several Rancors, Revan came across a downed starship that luckily had working parts necessary to the Ebon Hawk's repairs. As they went back to the Hawk, they noticed a relatively small shielded building, and when they approached it, a hologram of a Rakata, a species long thought extinct, appeared, and Revan identified himself to the hologram. When he entered, he met with the Elder Tribe's council, who recognised him as the man who had betrayed their trust several years earlier, after not destroying the Starforge as promised. But Revan explained the situation of his memory to them, and claimed he would do anything to earn their trust again to gain access to the temple. So they asked Revan to rescue one of their scouts who had been captured by their rivals, the Black Rakata. Revan agreed, and fought his way into the Black Rakata camp. The leader of the Black Rakatas, known as the One, released Rancors to kill Revan, but he and his pets were defeated by the Jedi. They released the imprisoned scout and returned to the Elders, who agreed to help Revan by opening the temple using an ancient ritual. However, they informed him that he had to enter the temple alone, and that the temple had been taken over by Dark Jedi. Juhani and Jolee returned to the Ebon Hawk while the Rakata completed their ritual, but they could both sense a dark presence in the temple and agreed that Revan would need their help. So they returned to the temple and convinced the Elders that Revan would need their help, and so the Elders reluctantly agreed. The three Jedi then entered the temple, cutting down the Dark Jedi and War Droid invaders. They then explored the catacombs of the temple and found a Rakatan computer that recognised Revan and opened the doors to the upper levels. When they reached the summit of the temple, they were shocked to see Bastila now dressed in a dark robe, holding a red double-bladed lightsaber waiting for them. She told the trio of Jedi that she was now Malik's apprentice and was no longer a mere pawn of the Jedi Council. She also revealed that she had been tortured to release her anger, and she belittled Revan for being so weak in comparison to his former self. The four then engaged in combat, and despite Bastila's prowess, she was overcome by the three Jedi Knights. She tried to convince Revan that he had given in to the dark side to defeat her, and that she could sense Darth Revan's presence through their bond. Revan then claimed that he would use the bond to bring her back to the light. Bastila also found Juhani to be pathetic, recalling her corruption in the Grove on Dantooine. But despite her attempts, Revan refused to fall to the dark side once again, and an enraged Bastila fled back to her ship, returning to the Starforge. Revan, Juhani and Jolee then deactivated the disruptor and returned to the Ebon Hawk with the intent to fly to the Starforge, kill Malik, destroy the machine itself, and end the war. Before they left for the Forge, Revan, Juhani and Jolee met with the rest of the crew on the beach and were saddened after being told of Bastila's fall to the dark side. However, Jolee made it clear to Revan that the bond he shared with Bastila was still present and their feelings for each other were still strong. They all entered the Hawk and lifted off the planet, joining the battle above between the Sith and the Republic forces. Admiral Dodonna contacted Karth and informed him that Bastila was using her immense skill in battle meditation to strengthen the Sith forces' resolve and weaken the Republic's. They all agreed that the Forge needed to be destroyed, but the only way to do so was to stop Bastila using battle meditation, as the power made the Sith practically invincible. Jedi Master Vandar offered to send Jedi to help board the Forge and find Bastila. When they all docked on the Starforge, the Jedi Knights, Revan and his companions were immediately met with extremely heavy resistance, consisting of Dark Jedi. After defeating them, several injured Jedi stayed behind to protect the Ebon Hawk, and Revan, HK-47 and Jolee proceeded further into the Forge to find Bastila. However, they were cut off from the other Jedi and were ambushed by a new, more powerful droid, created specifically by the Forge. The trio defeated the droids and found Bastila within the command centre. Bastila immobilised Revan's companions and engaged in a fearsome duel with the former Dark Lord. Revan overcame her 3 times before she finally gave up, and she begged Revan to kill her after the things she had done, but Revan convinced her that even those fully corrupted by the dark side could be redeemed just as he had been, and he admitted his love for her. Bastila could feel through the bond that Revan was telling the truth and admitted her love for him too. Although she had been redeemed, she refused to face Malak, fearing that she may be tempted to give in to the dark side again, and instead redirected her battle meditation to support the Republic and demoralise the Sith. Revan then proceeded alone and encountered Malak torturing 2 Jedi Knights and taunted Revan, claiming that he was invincible thanks to the power of the Starforge. Revan tried, despite knowing inside that it was futile, to convince Malak to give up and return to the Order. However, Malak made clear that he would rather die than be a slave to the Jedi again. So he activated many powerful droids, created by the Forge itself, to see if it was capable of destroying Revan, and retreated to the elevator. However, Revan managed to disable the droids. He then went to the elevator and proceeded to the Starforge viewing platform, to face his former student and best friend one last time. Revan approached Malak, who was impressed at Revan's success in defeating the droids. Revan claimed that it was the superior strength of the light side of the Force that allowed him to prevail. Malak was amused and pondered on whether it would be a good idea to capture Revan and turn him back to the dark side, but he decided against it, knowing that Revan was too powerful. Then, the 2 former Republic heroes, Jedi Knights, Dark Lords of the Sith and best friends ignited their sabers in a duel of fates. Despite Malak's belief that he was invulnerable thanks to the Starforge, Revan began to whittle him down. Malak began to consume the energy of unconscious Jedi that he had captured after destroying the Dantooine temple, replenishing his own strength. But even then, Revan was stronger, and ultimately bested the Dark Lord of the Sith. As Malak was on his knees, coughing, he spoke with Revan as a friend, knowing that he was beaten. Malak asked the question of what might have happened had he been captured and redeemed by the Jedi instead. Revan felt sadness for his former friend and apologised for starting Malak down the dark path, but reiterated that it was his continued desire to follow it. Before Malak died, he uttered something that would stay with Revan forever.
And in the end, as the darkness takes me, I am nothing.
Alec, known as Darth Malak, the Dark Lord of the Sith, was no more. The brothers, bound not by blood but by compassion, had their final moment together on the machine that ultimately split them apart. Revan deactivated his lightsaber and stood for a moment, remembering the man that Malak had once been, and then returned to the Ebon Hawk. As they left, the Starforge was destroyed and they travelled back down to Lehon. Revan and all of his 9 companions were given a ceremony by the Republic and the Jedi on the steps of the Temple of the Ancients. Revan was subsequently given the Cross of Glory, the highest military honour in the Republic military, and was also given the title of Prodigal Knight by Jedi Master Vandar. The crowd then cheered for the Prodigal Knight and the heroes of the Republic, knowing that the war with the Sith was ending. But this was not the end for Revan. His story is still yet to make many twists and turns that you do not want to miss, so please join me and hit that subscribe button so you're notified when Chapter 4 of Revan's story is released. The game of Knights of the Old Republic is an incredible one, and again, I urge you to pick it up and experience it in its entire glory if you haven't. As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and if you're interested in supporting me further than a simple subscription, perhaps consider checking out my Patreon page. I will see you guys in Chapter 4, The Rebirth of Revan. But until then, may the Force be with you. Always.